Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Conscious Conversations of Ascending Tribe. I'm Alex, creator of Ascending Tribe, and you can join our weekly group chats online by sending us an email. I'm so happy to introduce today's guest, who has a wealth of information and wisdom to share. Introducing Meghann Elisa from Rock and Moonrise. Meghann, how are you?
Hi, yes, so good. Everything considered. Very good.
Good. Can you give us more of an insight into your background? Like, tell us more about your journey and how you've come to where you are today.
Yeah, so my kind of awakening, if you like, happened when I was around 16 years old. I worked my whole life to work in the music industry, like as a kid growing up and as a teenager. That was always my goal. So I worked really hard to get into this fancy music college, and that was really like what I was going towards. And then with that kind of the pressures of that industry and my own mind and my own blocks and beliefs, I really felt like I needed to lose a lot of weight to be successful in that industry. So I went down that path when I was 16 years old and very quickly fell into quite a severe eating disorder. So that kind of threw everything into question. Everything that I'd worked for became different and unimportant, and my priorities became losing weight and exercising and all that kind of thing. But by chance, through doing that, I was at the gym and I found yoga. So I found yoga as a practice, and I went to it initially as an exercise. But when I first went, I thought, because I was in that mindset of like wanting to lose weight, I went and I thought, this is too slow, like I don't like this, I'm not going to do it. But I kept finding myself like creeping back into class every single week, and I had a really great teacher, and I fell in love with it, and it kind of opened me up to this whole other way of thinking. And that was definitely the trigger for my like spiritual awakening. A lot of deep yoga practice, and I kind of used it as a form of exercise for a while. I became a bit obsessed with it, but in a way it allowed me to have a lot of deep realizations and downloads like in quite a short space of time. So I left the music industry when I'd only just got into it. I was only 18 and I was like, nope. And I went to Thailand, to Asia, to do my healing. So I trained to teach yoga when I was 18 and did that, which was incredible, an intensive course. Met some really wonderful people and really deep in my practice. And then from there, I basically traveled, lived the nomad life, was just teaching and being very like free and hippie and nomadic and just kind of enjoying that for a while. And then I just kind of felt a little bit empty, not quite fulfilled, and almost like I was perpetuating a cycle of healing. I feel like sometimes when we're on a spiritual path, we can get stuck in like unpicking wounds and sewing them back up and healing, and then being blah blah. It was all a bit serious all the time. So I thought, I need to mix this up. I need to ground myself. I need to go back to Western civilization, because I've been living mostly in Asia, and do something with myself.
Yeah.
and switch it up. So I went to the first country I actually came to here back on the west side of the world was Berlin. So I started out in Berlin. I started exploring my creative passions, which I've been doing since I was a teenager. I've always been really passionate about tech. So I started doing journalism a little bit, writing, graphic design, web design, coding, like all kind of fun things like that. And then I kind of did a 180 and shifted into that kind of work. And I ended up living in different European cities and then different cities in the US, doing digital marketing, doing website design work for people, branding design, social media marketing, working with a lot of influencers and doing all that kind of thing. And I just kind of had this massive shift in wanting to make more money, which I did, but I almost kind of then went too far the other way, and I was all about the hustle never sleeps. I'm doing work when everyone else is asleep. I'm doing it and bringing in money. This is great. And it was to a degree. But then when I became pregnant with my son, I just had this major kind of reawakening that I wanted to bring my spirituality back into my work. And I didn't want to give up my work, but it was about finding that balance of those both sides and extremes, that duality of which I've experienced both sides to quite extreme, because I don't really do things by halves, and being spiritual and being connected to God and to the universe, but bringing that into my work and still owning making money, innovating and making an impact in our Western civilization. So that's what I'm all about, the marriage of the two, the Eastern influence, the spirituality, but bringing it into our lives, making it practical, and bringing it into like modern mysticism, you know. So that's kind of my story to date. That's where I am now. My son is 7 months now, so I've kind of been on this path really since he was born, the merging of the two, and I feel like in a really great balanced spot. So that's where I'm at.
That is such an incredible story, though, the fact that you've like lived almost everywhere, you've tried everything, you're doing, like, you're juggling so much at the moment, with your journey, like being on both ends of the spectrum. How did you find the balance? I know you touched on finding a middle ground, but I mean, how do you maintain this on a day-to-day basis?
One thing that I've found massively is having rituals in place. So like my morning ritual is like a big thing for me. So making sure that I always take a little bit of time to connect to spirit or God or universe or whatever it is that you want to call it, because I think we all have different ways that we connect with that, but making sure that you take time out of your day to do that. And even if it's not a morning routine, obviously my first love is music, and that's still a thing for me. So singing is actually a way that I really feel like I can connect with spirit. It's like my favorite way to meditate. So making sure that I actually take time out to sing. When I drive, I enjoy singing as well. I fall asleep to a meditation, just things like that. It doesn't have to be, you know, don't overthink it. It's about infusing those spiritual experiences in with your everyday life. And I always like to just reset every time I do work, and I'm applying myself in a practical work sense. I just like to reset and think, I'm a channel and I'm working and the universe is working through me, and I like to have that kind of mindset when I bring it to my work. So it's being able to infuse the spirituality into every little bit of work that I do, and also finding the balance between not working 24 hours a day, because I've definitely had those blurred boundaries, which I think is easy to do when you work for yourself, like just never really switching off from work. Actually now taking the time to spend time with my son or my husband, or sing, or just do things that I find enjoyable, or just go for a drive, just bringing in those times and finding that balance, just making sure that you make time. If you're somebody who feels like you need to work all the time and benefit from that kind of organization, actually schedule in time to do nothing, or schedule in time to have you time. I found that that's helped me to maintain the balance.
So do you schedule in time? Is that what you feel like you need to do, or do you just kind of flow and just do what you feel like you're being drawn to?
It's definitely a mixture. I'm by nature, I'm not an organized person. Like I'm not. My husband's a Virgo, so he's by nature somebody who is organized. I am not. I'm a Cancer sign. I have lots of water and air in my chart. With a little bit of fire, I have absolutely no earth. I'm not. It's not natural for me to be grounded. So to some extent, I have to flow with it. But I just I get used to what works in a certain container or time period, but I'm open to that changing. I think it's about having kind of a daily routine, yes, and sticking to it to an extent, but not to the point where if it isn't working anymore, you're so rigidly attached to it that you can't give it up. So each day I like to stick to my routines, but sometimes if something feels a little bit off, I like to know that I can shift and change. But if I don't have those kind of daily routines in place, for me, I'm a bit all over the place because of who I am naturally. So it's quite important to me to have something to stick to, but also not get so attached that I can't change it if it's not working anymore.
Again, it's that balance, isn't it? It's that balance between being attached and not being attached, I suppose, because I can feel the same way. Like I have a ritual in place every morning, but some days I don't stick to it, and some days I don't feel like sticking to it.
Right. So actually, this is something. So part of my morning routine is doing my yoga practice. So this is one thing for me. I'm a night owl. As a creative person, I'm really a night owl. So I don't like to strictly make myself get up early. There's so many like studies and books about the 5 a.m. club or whatever. And I've connected with a lot of people who feel like that's important. And if it works for them, that's fine, but it doesn't work for me. I'm not an early morning person. I'm not like that. So I like to feel the freedom to sleep into whenever I choose. So sometimes if I have scheduled things in and I let myself sleep in a little later, maybe I don't have time for my yoga practice. And then when it comes to it, I just know, do you know what? I'll slot my yoga practice in the evening instead. And when it comes to that time to practice, it's something I've written in my journal a few times this week, actually. I always do a gratitude practice, and I write, I am grateful that I'm able to adapt. I'm grateful that I'm flexible. I'm grateful for that, because I know that if something is slightly different, I instantly just think, oh, do you know what? I can just lost it. I can change it. And by not being attached, it makes it far less stressful when things go not wrong, but different than what you expect.
Yeah, when they don't go to plan, I tend to have this thing of like not beating myself up, kind of feeling a little bit guilty if I don't stick with my routine, you know.
Yeah, and it's about letting go of those. I definitely have been there. Definitely when I was in my my eating disorder, which I'm fully healed from now, but I'd say it impacted me heavily for about 4 years. And when I was in that state of mind, I was very rigid with how I had to be with things, and I would get very stressed out if things were not stuck to my ritual, stuck to my plan. But I've definitely learned to, and then I've been the other way, like just totally doing whatever I want and then never get anything done.
Yeah.
So I think that balance in the middle of, yes, having rituals and routines, but being open to them changing as you do, evolving as you do, the seasons evolve, mirror nature, like just let it flow a little bit freely. And you can always revisit things. If you feel like something isn't working, you can let go of it, and you can always come back to it. Nothing's ever absolute.
Yeah, that's true. You have a lot of knowledge around astrology, right? And I have quite a few questions about this. How do you use astrology to guide yourself through life? Because I know that's one thing that we spoke about last time. I find this really intriguing.
Yeah, so definitely paying attention to what's going on with the planets can really help you to feel affirmed in what you're feeling, because I think if you're attuned and you're a spiritual person, you'll probably notice energetic shifts anyway, but you may not be able to attribute them to anything. But then if you actually look into what the stars and the planets are doing, you feel like, oh, that's why. And it helps you to release any of those guilty feelings or uncertain feelings around why you're feeling a certain way, and also that feeling of when you're in something that it's going to last forever, knowing that the planets transit, we mirror that. We all go through transits and phases, like the moon goes through phases. Knowing that means that you can actually fully embrace it without being scared that it's going to be your life forever, because it's not. It's all temporary. All the movements are temporary. So obviously what most people know predominantly at the sun signs, like the seasons that we move through. So right now, obviously, we're at the end of May, so we're in Gemini season. So paying attention to that, you can utilize your energy in the best way possible. Last month, we were obviously in Taurus, which was an earth season. It's also fixed. Each sign is either fixed, cardinal, or mutable. Cardinal is kind of a leadership energy. It's an actionable, direct moving forward. Mutable is very flexible. It's kind of open to change. And then fixed is, as it sounds, totally fixed. So last month was really about sitting where you were, not doing too much, which obviously none of us had the choice because we were all in quarantine anyway. But being able to embrace that energy and actually just be still for a moment, work hard, attract abundance. Taurus is a lot about money as well. And by actually giving into those energies and working with that, you're able to reap the benefits in the best way possible. Like financially, last month was one of my best ones because I really just leaned into that. And we're now in Gemini season, which is air. It's mutable. It's very flexible. There's a lot more movement. There's a lot more thought, but it's not necessarily as steady and enduring as Taurus. So it's more a case of like allowing the thoughts to come, doing a lot of journaling, writing things down, but knowing that if I try and sit down and apply my energy to a long project right now, I'm not really going to do so great with that. And not feeling guilty because it's not me, it's the energies around me. So it's like working with them. And every single season, every single transit, I'm big on the moon, especially for us women, has a massive impact. So getting to grips with that, having just that overarching framework really helps me know where to apply my energy.
Yeah. Last time we spoke, I was feeling not myself, not my usual energies. And from when you told me that it's to do with the moon and the moon's energy, I kind of let go of like, again, this guilt. I don't know why I have this thing of like making myself feel guilty, but like this guilt of like, I feel like I need to be doing things. Like I felt absolutely exhausted. I had all these things that I needed to do, or that I feel like I needed to do, and I just couldn't do them. But then after we had that conversation, it kind of just released this, okay, I'm just going with it. So it's more, I suppose, like using astrology, it's more to do with preparing yourself rather than knowing or seeing what's coming. Is that correct?
Absolutely right. Yeah. I think, like I said initially, it can be great affirmation at the start, but then the more that you start to work with it, you are able to predict and plan for the different energies. And since I started planning my months in a business sense, and also in a personal sense, but mostly in a business sense, around the lunar phases, I've seen a massive shift in how I'm able to manage my energy. And I just want to share that with everyone because I think it's so important. Because when you and I spoke, we just had a full moon in Scorpio, which was really intense. Everybody I spoke to was like
feeling it.
And then the waning phase, which comes after a full moon, we're constantly in this cycle of expanding, growing, energy rising, and then going back down and up and down. We're constantly in that, and it's beautiful because it mirrors life. That's how life works anyway. But when we're in that phase of retreating, introspecting, going down, trying to be outward and trying to apply loads of crazy energy and get loads of things done, you're going to be met with resistance, and it's just a waste of energy. Whereas if you're actually able to use that time to be introspective and actually work with it, you're able to apply yourself in ways that are going to be more beneficial and more productive long term. And the fact that when you get to grips with the cycles, the lunar cycle is only 28 days long, so when you get to grips with that and you know that it's going to come around, I think it's a lot easier for you to actually fully rest and release, because you know it's going to end, because it did end for you, didn't it?
Yeah. This week I've been like feeling a lot better. Yeah, like over the weekend it was like the last little trickles of it, and I was just like, yeah, I'm just sitting with it, like, because I now I'm aware of what it was. You know, before I was just like, why am I feeling like this? I was thinking, is it my mind? Is it like something to do with me? You know, but I mean, how can people learn this knowledge, I suppose? Like, is there somewhere that you go, or like, how did you learn this, and how can other people kind of implement this into their life?
I've learned through a combination of different sources. I always think it's good to do that, because there's so many different perspectives, and it's a mixture of knowledge that I've read from different teachers, from different books, from websites, all that kind of thing. And then the more you get to grips with it, it also gets infused with your own experience. So certainly with my astrology knowledge as well, I know that's influenced a lot by obviously people that I've met in my life that belong to certain signs, and experience that I've gathered over time. So when you initially start, I would really just say, use the internet. I love the internet. We've got such a wealth of knowledge available to us. Google stuff, search on Instagram, look through hashtags, and just find what speaks to you, because not every teacher, not every astrology teacher or moon teacher or any kind of spiritual teacher is going to resonate with you. So at first, just be open, explore, see what feels like a good fit, and then align yourself with the teacher that you really feel like you respect and resonate with. And then from there, you can just build up the information, and the more knowledge that you have, you'll start to notice the synchronicities in your own life. And then all of a sudden, you'll find that you're not just drawing from knowledge that you've read, you're also drawing from your own experience. But definitely just exposure as much as possible to all the different channels of information, and just finding what resonates with you.
And it's different for everyone, isn't it? So I mean, based on people's birth signs and natal charts, the energies aren't going to be felt in the same way for everyone. So for example, like what you may be feeling last week, I might not be feeling, because of our natal chart is different?
Yeah, so the overarching energy is the same, but the way we perceive and receive and work with them is different. So as I know, but not everybody knows, we mostly associate with our sun sign. That's what we all know, and that's the month we were born under. But as we've discussed, you have a whole natal chart of 7 personal planets, and then some more collective planets. Because they're slower moving, they more so define your generation. They span like a few years, but you have 7 personal planets that are unique to you, and it's the combination of them all and the different energies that work to kind of build up you. I like to think of people, I really do think of my human body as like a container. I think it's good to be connected with it, but I definitely don't feel like I am my body. And that was part of my healing from my eating disorder. That's another story. But I like to think of each individual person as almost like a kaleidoscope. Like we're all connected to source or to God or to the universe, or however you want to see it. But we're each being filtered through this kaleidoscope of all these different colors. And it's like all your different signs, as well as your experiences in life and your different perspectives and values and beliefs and culture and all that kind of thing all contributes to this kaleidoscope. And we're all, if we allow it, we all have that capability for the divine to flow through us, but it's coming through this unique perspective that we all have, and nobody's got the same one. So all the different signs kind of make that up. And specifically on the signs, each planet represents a different element of your life. So like Venus, of course, represents love. So when you're looking into like your love language, or people, I've had so many people come to me for readings, which I actually just don't really do this anymore, but people messaging like, am I SM gonna marry BS or whoever, like these initials, are we going to get married, these are our dates? And while I don't really like to do readings like that, you can definitely see a lot of compatibility within a chart, but don't just look at your sun signs. Looking at your Venus signs is probably more beneficial. But things like that, like just opening yourself up to your full chart, I would recommend everyone starts by you can literally do it for free, like on Google, going to a website and putting in your birth information, getting a full chart, getting to grips with all of your planets, what they represent, and getting to grips with all of your signs will really help you to understand yourself better, because it's not just that one sun sign. You have so many elements. You're a multifaceted person. Get to know yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know this before. Like a few years ago, I was just always going around saying I'm an Aries and I'm like this and I'm like that, and then I used to think like, how can all Aries be the same, you know, like, and I don't resonate with some other Aries, or I don't feel like I have the same traits as them, you know. So yeah, it does make sense. The other thing I was just thinking as well is like what you were talking about, the energies, is imagine businesses built, like, worked around the astrological energies,
right?
Like, instead of saying, yeah, I can't come in today because the moon is sending me some mad energy.
Muggle works don't have, you know, Muggle jobs don't have the time or the understanding of this kind of thing, but thanking God that I do work for myself, because when we are in a more introspective waning phase, I can be more quiet. But you know, as I grow and scale my business, which I do intend to do, I'm fully going to take those things into account. And I don't think it's going to mean we only work for 2 months, 2 weeks out of the month. But that's what I've learned by managing the energies better. If you have some reserves, you can actually just dedicate those more quiet, introspective times to different kinds of work, as opposed to thinking you're going to have a massive creative output or want to talk to people, which you won't. But you can use that energy to focus on other things, reflect, review, plan, and be a bit more personal and do individual work. So I think it's definitely something I'm going to bring into my business.
I think that is the way forward, you know.
Yeah, so do I. I also feel like as a collective globally, but I don't think this will happen, but I wish it would. I think we should, you know, use the astrological seasons for our calendars as a whole. Like, I don't know if I said this to you last time we spoke, but having our new year in the middle of winter is so stupid. Like, we should really have our new year when the astrological new year is, which is in the middle of March, which is spring. It's on spring equinox. Why is that not the first day of the year?
I thought this as well.
Why these months? I'm literally so living by the astrological seasons right now. When people start a new month, like for example, we're about to start June, the 1st of June, fresh month, it means nothing to me because we're already halfway through Gemini. To me, it feels like a new reset when we have a new astrological season. I would love.
Yeah, no, it does make sense.
Run by that, but it's not. But oh well.
Yeah, because like winter's for hibernating. You're meant to be sleeping, so you're waking yourself up for something new, and it's like it's not new. It's
not new, and everyone's like, new year, new me, and then inevitably the goals don't happen because it wasn't the right time yet. Your body wasn't ready, and we get this kind of new lease of life and energy come springtime.
It's so true. Yeah, everything wakes up. But you have such a connection to the moon, so I really want to touch on this and like tell us how does the moon affect us?
So yeah, I definitely feel, I've always felt connected to the moon because I am a Cancer sun, which is, Cancer is a sign of the moon. So the moon is at home in Cancer. That's a natural fit. And my moon is also in Cancer. So I'm like a double Cancer and my moon is in Cancer. So I've always felt connected to it. Even on a scientific level, if you think about the way the moon pulls the ocean and the tides, which is scientifically proven, so less woo-woo, you think about the gravitational pull that it actually has, and then you think about the fact that us as humans are at least 60% water. Of course, it's going to have an effect on how we feel and what's going on inside of us. So particularly as women, the moon has a connection with us because it represents the divine feminine. The sun is masculine and the moon is feminine, so it's more of a softer lunar, nurturing, loving kind of energy. Every single month the moon obviously moves through 8 different phases. It's a 28-day cycle, and again, affirming the fact that it is almost a mirror for us as women. It's the same length as the female menstrual cycle, and in a lot of ancient traditions and histories, the new moon is supposedly a time that lines up with your period. So that's a time when women would be more introspective, and they would take time away from everyone, not out of shame, but because they needed to just be by themselves and just use that time to fully release, reflect, and then come back refreshed and with new energy. So as I mentioned already, the moon is constantly either growing bigger in the sky as we see it. Obviously the moon's always the same size, but it's the way the light's reflected off it from the sun. So it's either growing bigger and the tides are getting higher, that's how it affects the earth, or it's the tides are moving back and the moon's getting smaller than what we see, and that's really reflective within our energies. So you can also think of it like the way daylight savings works, you know, like through the summer, like the days getting longer and longer and longer to a point, and then it goes the other way. And it's the same way with the moon. So starting out with the new moon, when the moon's barely visible in the sky, it's really a quiet time. That's the most quiet time of the cycle to reflect and release and set intentions for the new cycle. And then as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, we should be setting intentions, taking action, moving towards what we want. The momentum will be building. You'll be supported to start new projects and to make moves. And then the full moon is really the peak of that energy. So depending on where it is, as well as moving through the phases, the moon is also moving through the astrological signs. So it spends about 2 or 3 days in each sign, which is why the full moon and the new moon are in a different sign every single month. The new moon is always in the sign that the sun is in. So for example, it was new moon in Gemini last, and then the full moon is always in its opposite. So the opposite, Gemini's opposing sign is Sagittarius. So the full moon, and it's actually a lunar eclipse next week, will be in Sagittarius. So the particular aspects and qualities of that sign are also influencing the moon at the same time. So every full moon is going to be a little bit different, and the way that it's charged and the way that you receive it will depend on your own sign and how you relate to the qualities of that sign. But the full moon is the peak, it's time to harvest, and then from there it starts getting smaller and smaller, and our energy starts to wane again, and that's what it's called, the waning phases. And that's really not the time to be starting projects or trying to push yourself. And that was when we last spoke and you were like because we've had that big peak, we're left with like we're sat to deal with what's left after that peak has happened.
Yeah.
We can just offer up gratitude, we can be reflective, we can release and really surrender, and then eventually when the new moon comes around again, it's time to begin all over again and set intentions. But it's so powerful to work with because it also allows us to keep moving and know that even when we are resting, we're not stagnant. It's just part of the cycle. So not getting frustrated with ourselves and fighting it and then finding that we actually are less productive because we didn't take that time needed before we move into the next cycle.
Yeah, I'm so going to be more aware of this. So is it like the waning phase is 2 weeks in the month, in every month? Is that how it works?
Yeah. So it's like we start with the new moon, and then there's 2 weeks of waxing, which is the moon growing bigger. We peak with the full moon, and then there's 2 weeks of waning. So it's 2 weeks of waning, 2 weeks of waxing. But each there's 3 different phases within the waning and waxing, and they all have a slightly different energy because obviously the momentum is either building or growing. So there's how you may be feeling immediately after the new moon is different to right before the full moon, even though they're both waxing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like building and then it's going down. So it kind of goes every few days it shifts slightly, but the overarching mood of each of those phases is as so.
Can you tell us like what the difference between a new moon and a full moon is? Is there a difference? Like, what's the difference between the energies that come out of those two?
Yeah, so the new moon is the quiet time. That is the most quiet and introspective time of the cycle. So it's really a good time to be kind of thinking about what you want to invite in. It's the start of the cycle. So thinking about the next 28 days, what kind of seeds you want to plant and what kind of things you want to move into, and what you want to let go of from the past one, what you're fully letting go of now and moving into something else. So it's really, the energy's there. I wouldn't plan anything. You know, you hear about when I lived in Thailand, you know, on Koh Tao and like on those islands, they have full moon parties, right? Because that is the time, it's the time to celebrate and like to be social. And the new moon is not. So it's not really time to socialize. It's more time to be introspective, sit with yourself and think about what it is you want to call in. The full moon is the peak of everything. So hopefully over the last couple of weeks, if you've been working with the energies, you've been setting intentions, you've been working towards things, and you'll start to see fruition, or if it's a long-term plan, signs of fruition that it's going to happen for you. So it's a time for you to actually just revel and celebrate, and the energies are really high vibe. So it's a good time to socialize and be with people and just reap all of the benefits of the things that you've been doing over the last few weeks, if you've been paying attention. Tuning. They're quite opposing energies, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, how can we consciously work with these energies?
In terms of
in a more conscious way, yeah.
So I'm always aware of what's going on. So I think paying attention, again, you can look at it on Google, or just find a calendar that suits you, just following and paying attention to what's going on, and then using rituals, particularly on the new moon and full moon, because they do punctuate the cycle, if you like. Doing an intention setting ritual can be really helpful on the new moon, like actually sitting down with your journal, getting anything out that you need to release, and actually writing down some things. I'm really a big believer in setting an intention and then releasing it. Law of attraction is not about obsessing over something, that actually pushes it away. So once you set your intentions and written them down, you can maybe burn the piece of paper, or just like do something to release it to the universe, let it go. And then with full moon energies, if you're a business owner as well, because that's really kind of the angle I always come from and always think about, you can use the energies to be visible in your business and show up, record videos. If you're going to do a launch, I would definitely do it in the time, in the waxing time of the cycle. And then you can use the waning time to reflect on how it went, what you do differently. If something didn't go so good and you're upset by it, use that time to fully release it. But yeah, just showing up and being more visible in the waxing signs, initiating projects, really making bold moves. And in the waning phases of the cycle, taking the time to reflect, sit back, allow yourself to rest, and just allow yourself to plan and plot quietly, and release anything that's no longer serving you. I hope that's helpful and practical.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm already feeling like I'm going to rewatch this probably a couple times.
Yeah.
This section. Yeah, that was really useful. Thank you. But what do the different retrogrades mean? Because we do hear this a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's this massive focus on Mercury retrograde, of course. And I think the reason that is so predominant and the one people talk about the most is because Mercury is the planet of thought and communication. So because it affects communication, it tends to show up more
conflicts, maybe.
Yeah, with conflicts with everybody else and with things that are happening, you know, with the travel, journeys, business agreements, anything like that. When things start to move backwards, we feel all of that, and it becomes very, very apparent. Also, the fact that Mercury, aside from the sun and the moon, Mercury is the fastest transiting planet. So it moves into a new sign every 3 weeks, and the faster moving the planet, the more intense the phase and the retrograde phase. So Mercury retrograde only lasts 3 weeks, because that's around the length of the transit. So because of that, it's more intense. So the shorter it is, the more intense it is. So I think that's why we feel it more. But what retrograde actually means, and all the planets can go retrograde, is that each of the planets represents these different parts of you. Like, as we said, Mercury is thought and communication, Venus is love, Mars is anger and passion, Jupiter is to do with travel, freedom, and also your work. So everything represents something different. When that planet goes into retrograde, it's that particular area of your life where you may start to feel resistance, blocks, or things just not running as smoothly as they normally would. So that's how we experience it in Mercury. It's the communication, it's the organization, it's the thought patterns going backwards. And as I said, Mercury is the shortest transit. So all of the other planets, like Venus, we're in quite a few retrogrades right now. I think there's 4. Pluto is one of the slowest moving planets, and the retrograde is about 8 months long. So it started last month, and it lasts until, not 8 months, it lasts until September. So like four 4.5 months. Not very good at maths
Wow.
there. Yeah, but it's quite a long time. And Pluto is the planet of transformation and deep rebirth and healing. It's not really a pretty energy. It's like quite a dark one. So when it goes in retrograde, what that also means is that you're less likely to see the influences externally, and it encourages you to turn inward. So Pluto retrograde is really a time for looking inward on your own rebirth, doing some deep healing. If any wounds come up, now's the time to address those and look at it. But retrogrades can be challenging, and they can bring up certain aspects of ourselves that we may have been ignoring. It really shines a light, turns us to look inward.
It's quite funny that Mother Nature is going into healing right now.
Right. So funny how everything that's happened recently has lined up with all of this. Aquarius is the sign of humanitarianism and the collective, and so many signs, including Saturn, which only changes sign every 2.5 years. It's the slowest moving personal planet, and it's all about boundaries and limits. It moved into Aquarius the day before we went into lockdown here in the UK. Many things happened around Aquarius at the time that this all kicked off, and it was about it. Aquarius energy is about the collective and humanitarian issues. So very interesting.
It is. It's so funny. Like you do see it on like so many different levels. Like it's not just about how it affects us personally, but like you were saying, it's collectively and in our realities, like in a physical plane as well. Like on many different levels. It's really interesting.
It's so interesting.
How do you manage day-to-day challenges when they arise?
I'm a very calm person. I think that's important, to be able to flow with things and accept things. I always try to see the best in things, and I think having that ability to pivot is really important. So one of my favorite phrases in the world is stubborn goals, flexible methods. I think always having your eye on the prize and having a stubborn goal for how you want to feel, remembering that anything that you actually want, a desire, a job, an object, any kind of situation, anything that you want, it's the feeling that you're yearning for. So being open to different ways of getting there. It's not always the way you think. I think when you're so tunnel vision, thinking that to achieve something you need to tick certain boxes or do certain things, or there's a particular something that you really want to grasp, you can actually close yourself off from other doors that may be opening. So whenever anything goes not to plan, I just roll with it, because I have full faith that it was supposed to happen, and it's actually perhaps steering me a different path than what I expected, but I'm still going to the same goal. I think as long as you have that intention deeply and you hold that intention for how it is that you want to feel and the kind of lifestyle that you want to create for yourself, and the kind of impact that you want to have on a big picture scale, the day-to-day details, you should let go of, and actually just be able to pivot and deal with things as they arise by knowing that it's in your greatest good, and that you can still reach your goals or the feelings and the things that you want to manifest perhaps a different way than you expected. I've had so many crazy experiences that have led me to really godly, magical, elevated up levels and spiritual awakenings just by being open to them, when initially I might have thought, I'm not actually sure if this is the path, or this certainly isn't the path I thought I was going to go down, but something feels right about it, and then I've actually wound up where I intended to be, but I just got there a different way. So day to day, it's really just a case of me being like, okay. And if you're somebody who's a bit more hot-headed, because I'm not really, but my husband is, trying to help him work with that, it's increasing that space between something happening to you and reaction. If you feel like you're going to react, pause, take a moment, go be by yourself, just allow it all, use a creative pursuit, just let it all come out, and then come back and address it later on when you're not in that kind of crazy emotional state, and just be able to accept things and have faith that everything that's happening to you is for the greatest good, as long as your intention is clear.
That sounds really good. Based on, I'm really intrigued about like your rituals as well. Like, can you go more in depth into actually personally what rituals you carry out, and do you have different ones for specific times?
My morning ritual is the one that stays the most. I'm really a big believer in in nourishment and fueling ourselves well to look after this body and make sure that we're the clearest we can be to feel connected to spirit, and just look after it so that we have the most energy and we can do our best work. So I would say like food and like my tonics and like the things that I consume is quite an important part of my ritual. And I think it's nice because we all have to eat every day, so it's something that's never going to change. So it's something you can't really forget about or let slide, because we all eat every day. So that's definitely part of my rituals and routines. When I first wake up, I smudge, so I like using sage or Palo Santo, and then I have lemon water. I mix it with a few different things like apple cider vinegar and ginger and like a few different things like that, and then I read. My morning time is not a productive time for me work-wise. As I said, I'm just not a morning person. So I actually decided, I made a conscious decision to stop trying to push myself to work in the morning, because it just wasn't working and I wasn't being productive at all, to instead using that time to actually educate myself and read, because that I can do at that time. So rather than just sitting there trying to work for hours and getting nothing done, actually just thinking, do you know what, I'm going to use this time for something that's more conducive. So I read or do my online study or courses, and then I'm actually getting something done with that time. And then I have my coffee, because I love coffee. Pick your battles. I'm never going to give that up. So I have a coffee, and then I do my gratitude practice, journaling. I actually find really, really helps me. I literally just write freely. I think not attaching yourself to thinking you have to write a certain way or tick any boxes with journaling. I literally just write, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for this. And sometimes it goes into, I love this, I am this, but I just don't think about it too much. And then I just close it and I forget about it. Maybe I'll revisit it in a few months and think, oh, that's interesting, I manifested that. But like, I never obsess over it. I just write it, I don't think about it, and then I throw it away. And then I do my yoga practice, which helps bring me into my body. And if I don't do my yoga practice, I notice, like I feel it. Yesterday was one of those days where I had to pivot because I didn't have time to do my practice in the morning because I had a meeting, and it got to sort of 6 p.m. and I felt this back pain, and I was like, this is abnormal. And I was like, it's because I didn't do my yoga yet. So then I just did it in the evening instead. But that's the routine I do every single morning. And then I have my like food rituals, if you like, throughout the day. I don't think it's good to get obsessive over food, obviously, because I've been down that road in the past and I'm not interested to revisit it. But I do eat really the same thing every day, mostly, which is varied, but within itself. But just having that kind of the opportunity to break from my work and enjoy that, that's kind of what punctuates my day. And then in the evening, I really like to wind down, go for a walk, go for a drive. Driving is really an important ritual to me because I enjoy singing, and I just love being like free and feeling like I'm going somewhere, even if I'm just driving nowhere. I will do a meditation before I sleep. So that could be an abundance meditation. I feel like that time before you go to sleep is really a time when you're almost like a bit of a sponge, and you're most likely to soak things in. And then oftentimes I'll dream about what it was that I was listening to as well, which is so powerful for the subconscious.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Those are my main like daily rituals. On the new moon, I just do some extra journaling and dedicate my practice to that specific energy. And then on the full moon, I like to share the energy with others and connect with people in my circle, or just share and celebrate what it is that that I've been working towards that month.
I mean, I know you said, sorry, say that again.
They're very simple rituals, but you know, you don't need to overcomplicate it, because if you overcomplicate things and then don't stick to it, then it's wasted. It's better to find something that actually feels good for you. It shouldn't feel like a chore or like you're forcing something. Other people's rituals won't look like mine because they won't feel right for you. You've also got to adapt to your own seasons. And like we said at the beginning, this rituals that I do right now won't work for me all the time. And I've been through different phases with rituals. And another one, probably my absolute favorite ritual of all, is my skincare ritual. I see, and that won't be a big deal for everyone, but for me, it's massive. I love doing it, and I love like treating my body that way. I use a lot of natural skincare products, so I really enjoy like I have my shower or my bath at night. So having like using that opportunity to cleanse, never underestimate the power of water. I always like to set the intention before I take a shower or a bath to cleanse myself, like spiritually as well as physically, and then nourishing my skin and my body with all of my products like just makes me feel great. I love that ritual. I won't take you through that, but I have about a 12-step.
No, but I'm the same though. I find it so important because for me, I find that looking after your body in that way, like I've got like a little ritual, like when I get out of the bath or the shower, and for me, it's like, it's self-love, it's self-care. Like I'm giving myself self-love, and that's how I see it. Like for me, the first thing I do is I dry brush afterwards. So I love dry brushing. But yeah, like I have like different ones as well. But yeah, what you were saying about water,
that process.
So true. I have my moments of clarity when I'm in the shower or in the bath. Like when I'm in or underwater or submerged in water, like I don't know what it is. Well, it's to do with water, isn't it? It's cleansing. But I have my real epiphany moments during this time.
Yeah, it's so powerful. Or being by water, or just under that influence of water. It's so special. So definitely, that's a big part of my rituals and routines, my bath and my shower and that whole shebang. And it's the same every time, and I almost feel like it's so nice, like moving through the steps ritualistically, knowing this is how it's going to go, this is what's happening next, and you're almost on autopilot. And it's so nice because it removes away the decision-making aspect. So you almost move into a state of meditation because you're operating less from your brain. You're more just kind of flowing and working with energy because you already know what you're doing. You don't need to think about it so much. I read a few articles in the past about this concept of decision fatigue when it comes to being an entrepreneur. So like how really big entrepreneurs try and reduce their decision making as much as possible, and that's also something that I try and do. One of my biggest inspirations is Steve Jobs, and he wore the same outfit every single day. So he had like multiple, he had a few different items, but they were the same. If that makes sense. He wasn't wearing the same outfit every day, but the same outfit every day. Like he had like 10 of the same top. That's what I mean. Like his black. See, I dress like him, really.
He really is your inspiration.
He is my inspiration, honestly. His blue jeans and his trainers, and he wore those every single day because it took away the fatigue of making a decision. And it's true, your brain is tired the more decisions you have to make. I think Mark Zuckerberg also has the same outfit every day because it just takes that away. So by having those rituals in place, be it when I'm making my elixir in the morning or when I'm doing my skincare, I get to stop thinking for a moment. And that's incredible, and such a nice powerful way to connect and to preserve energy as well.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because I'm really indecisive. I don't like making decisions.
It takes up so much of your energy.
I mean, even little things. Like I went to my friend's house, bless her, I love her so much, but like she asked me, do I want my food in a plate or a bowl? I was just like, I just don't like making decisions. Can you just decide for me? Or like if I go, I don't know, if I go out with friends and it's like, oh, what drink do you want? I don't know, just get me. I'm really like that. I'm very indecisive.
You know what, I can't even begin to tell you the shift that I had since I decided to start living more intuitively. And I've always classed myself as an intuitive person, always, because I do ultimately, when it comes down to it, do a lot of things based off intuition. But I have still previously had that like slight indecisiveness, a slight hesitation, and then a few, maybe, when was it? It was last year now. I've been living this way for a while and it's great. But I had this epiphany moment. When I was in the supermarket buying coffee, and I really value my coffee, as you know. And I always look at it and I'm thinking, okay, the price, where's it from? Is it organic? Like, how's it blended? Like all this kind of thing, like trying to process all these different decisions in my head. And it's really easy to get caught up in that because we have so much choice nowadays. Like we have so much, it's not just a choice of like 3 coffees. It's like 12 coffees or more than that, like 20 coffees. And I'm like, and I just thought, wait, what if I just pick the coffee that I'm the most drawn to? This sounds like the most simple, like stupid thing ever, but it was a massive epiphany for me. And I was like, I'm just gonna do that. So I just picked one without even like really looking at it and just thought, this is the one. And I've literally, since that day, I've just been living like that. So rather than get all caught up in like the specifics and like the human things, I literally just like tune in for a second and just think, oh, that's what I'm gonna go with. And I've been choosing
such a good point.
It saved me so much energy. Honestly, it's been a game changer. I feel like I have so much more energy since I started doing that. I'm
gonna try doing that.
Try doing it. What's the worst?
I'm not a decision maker.
Start doing it, and the more you do it, you'll start to trust your intuition more too.
Yeah, unless I really know what I want. Like unless I'm in that place, I'm just like, okay, I know specifically this is what I want. Then something. Yeah,
it doesn't always have to be a logical reason. If you believe in spirit and the universe, which I do, think of something greater guiding you and just trust it. That's what I've been doing.
Actually, speaking of this, I really want to know your opinion on this, but do you believe that our lives are written in the stars?
I think to a degree, yes. Something I've been exploring recently is the idea of quantum physics. So the quantum aspect of things, which is that everything exists always at one time eternally. So that like that time is really just a human construct, which it kind of is, and that we can access any different reality at any time if we wish to. So it's this idea of like quantum leaping. And that's kind of what I think. So I think, yes, every reality you could possibly choose or want for is written in the stars and has already happened. When you think about time and what that actually is, I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But I think everything that you could ever possibly want or imagine is possible on some realm. And I believe that you have the power to choose which one you want to
I agree with that.
With and which one you want to vibrate on. So there is massive power of choice, but definitely it's happened and it's possible on some realm.
And I'm really into like quantum physics.
Yes, exactly. That's kind of my overarching view. That's where I've landed with it. And I find it really helpful when things that I maybe feel an attachment to, that I'm being guided to let go of, but I'm struggling with because I feel attached to it, that might also be a person. I do believe that sometimes we have soul connections. I'm a monogamist, but I do believe that we have more than one maybe soul connection. And what's helped me to be able to let go of things that I'm being guided to let go of, but I feel attached to, is to think, do you know what, that is a reality on some other plane, just not this one. And so there's a reason that I'm connected to this and this person, and on some reality and on some plane that is true, but just not on this one that I'm on right now. And
I remember, no, definitely. I mean, I remember listening to a talk. I can't remember where I found it actually. It was on YouTube. It was quite a few years ago, and it really linked like the quantum physics aspect to the spiritual aspect, and actually how connected they really are. And in terms of creating your own reality, like you were saying, the reality is already there. Like it's already happened and it's already there, and it's what you consciously choose to focus on. And that's how we can hop different realities, is by changing the focus, I suppose.
Absolutely. I've lived about like 7 different lives or something.
You definitely sound like you have.
All these different jobs, places, and I could have followed the thread in any of those places and stayed there and gone down that trajectory, but just hopped between a few. I'm quite focused on the one I'm on now, but like I said, I'm always stubborn about the goal, but I'm always like flexible and open. Nothing's ever absolute, so I'm never going to say this is it for me or for anyone, because things change and we evolve, and it's like a beautiful thing, and it's good not to,
like you were saying, like nature, it's always changing, isn't it?
And I think that's a massive problem for the collective because of the way we run things as a society, like feeling like we need to attach to one identity and then be that way for the rest of our lives. Like we get one job, sign a mortgage on a house, and that's it. Like this is it, this is us, this is our life, this is who we are. And then no wonder people get depressed and upset. I don't think we like to live that way.
That life scares me.
Me too. Me too.
That life scares me, of just like I've never been that person that's kind of thought like, that's definitely where I want to live. Oh my god, baby.
Baby cameo.
That is so cute. Oh my god, what's his name?
Xander, with a Z. Z for short.
That was adorable.
Another cameo. Say hi.
Hi, baby. Super smiley. That must be difficult, juggling all of that. I don't know, like I'm not a mum, so I can't really relate to trying to juggle everything and be a mum as well.
Being a mom is something I've really leaned into. I wouldn't say I felt ready for it, but I would say, like, I believe everything happens for a reason. It was definitely a blessing, and I'm a much better person for it personally. But I think what's been the key to me being a mom is not feeling like I need to attach to that as my identity. I think a lot of the fears I had around it were because of what society makes you think being a mom is, or because I don't know. I just thought, like, I don't know. People just talk about like your life ending or everything being different.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
We've just really continued to be the same as always, but now we have like this little like best friend to like come along with us. But we're still like living how we've always lived, really. And we traveled with him when he was 8 weeks old and went to all these different countries and people are like, you won't be able to travel when you have a baby. And I'm like, why though?
Yes, I will.
You can still live your life and be independent. I think that'll probably be better for him to see us that way.
Yeah, I really want to talk about actually a really taboo subject, especially within the spiritual community. I think you know what it is. Money. Yeah, it seems to be quite a taboo subject, you know, like, and we had that conversation before, like, even I have that uncomfortability around money and the perception around money and the negative connotation that's held with money. I mean, how can we accept the concept of money being energy? Like, can you explain your perception around money?
Yeah, so money is energy, like you said, and it's a currency. And we, as humans, decided that money is what we use for currency. We're the ones who give it value. And as a collective, we have the power to deem it worthless at any time. So it really is just a currency, and it's reflected energetically. It's a reflection of you and your energy, because what it is just a means to experience things. Rather than think of it, I always think about, like the cartoon SpongeBob, like Krusty, the Krusty Krab, Mr. Krabs, that's his name. He just collects all his money and like sits on it, right? And that's not what it's about, because then that's attaching this idea that money is like an object to sit on and to keep. It's not. It's something that should be an energetic flow, because all it is a means to experiencing things, right? So by you having money, you don't need to feel guilty. It's definitely not something that you're being greedy over, because what you should be doing is feeling free to receive it, but also feeling free to give it away. It's like this energetic exchange, and spiritual people in particular are the ones who should have money, because we can do so much good with it. You can do so much good with money, and by inviting it in and opening yourself up to receiving lots of money, there are so many wonderful things that you can do. You can pay it forward to other businesses. You can use it to give yourself elevated experiences that are going to raise your consciousness. And you know that by being on this path, we're all connected. So having that universe within you, by raising your own consciousness, you're doing it for the collective. And if you do it with that intention, by healing yourself, you're also healing the collective. And money is really just a tool to be able to facilitate those own experiences for yourself, to do your own work, to make an impact, to innovate, and also to facilitate those experiences for other people. When you really, any kind of self-worth issues around anything, but money as well, all comes down to the ego. It's an ego issue, with being attached to thinking this is mine, or this is my money, or I don't deserve this, I'm not good enough, when actually you are just a channel for the divine, and you're connected to everything else. You're connected to everything. Money is freely available to you, like it is to everyone. And when you actually just let go of that ego thing and remind yourself that you're just a channel, you're just welcoming in energy so that you can use it as a means to have higher experiences, to get closer to God, to do better work, and to pay it forward and pay it back to the people around you. It's less a personal thing and it's more a collective thing. You're sharing it. It shouldn't be stuck. It shouldn't be stagnant. It should be constantly moving, creating space for more money to come in, spending freely, inviting it in, being open to receive. Just people, I really believe as a whole, we need to just lighten up the energy around it, because it is light, it's free flowing, it's temporary like everything else.
Yeah. And there's a misconception as well around money, which I've had for a very long time, that it's limited. There's a
right?
limited amount of it.
Yeah, well, and if you think about it in this energetic sense, it's totally freely, abundantly infinite, because energy is. So when you start to tap into that belief more so that you are connected to the universe and to the whole, and you feel that connection to the divine, which is truly infinite, that starts to be reflected in your everyday reality, which, let's be honest, in the world that we live in, runs on money. So the more that you start to have that inner connection, the more that you can invite that in a wider sense. And when you connect with that and know that everything is infinite, you'll know that money and the experiences that you can have on this, in this world, on this planet, they're infinite too. And the only reason we don't think that is because of, values and beliefs that are ingrained in us from a young age, that things are hard and like money doesn't grow on trees, and like when it actually does. I mean, the paper version of it does, doesn't it? Like, it's money anyway. Like the digital number in your bank account, it's literally make believe. It's not even anything. It's not a tangible object. It's not like gold. It's like, it's just really a concept. So when you're giving value to somebody, you should be okay with that being an energetic exchange. And when you know that you're giving and you're channeling and you take the ego out of it and you're just opening up to let the divine flow through you in your work, how can you possibly put a price on that? And people will be willing to pay for that as well in work, because of the value that they're getting. It's all just an energetic exchange.
I mean, how do you put like, when you're pricing up your services, for example, or for anyone else who has a business that has a product or a service, how do you know when when it's kind of reaching that greedy level, when it's your worth, and when you're underselling yourself?
I do a lot of intuitive pricing, especially since like I said, I've had kind of a shift around how I make decisions. But I think you're underselling yourself when you start to feel resentment around the work that you're doing because you haven't been paid enough for it. If the money doesn't cover the value and the energy output that you're doing in terms of what that money can bring for you, be it experiences, food, or like whatever you're using it for, if it doesn't match up to the energetic output that you're doing or the time that it takes you, I think that's definitely when you're underselling yourself. With finding the right price, again, I do try to price intuitively. So it's more kind of the value that I know the other person is going to get as balanced with the energetic output that I give. So for example, eventually when you come to a point where you're selling, if you're selling something that only needs to be made once, like a product, like a course, or even be a physical product, you only need to make that once. But that doesn't mean that you should diminish the price of it just because you don't have an energetic output anymore, because of the value that person is going to receive. So it's that balance of like the value you're giving as well as the energy that you're putting out. In terms of being greedy, I'm not sure if I ever really feel like, I think I only feel like it's greedy if you want money for the sake of it, or for something you haven't done, or if it's work that isn't aligned on your path. I feel like if you're truly aligned doing work, your sole purpose work, and you actually are opened up to a channel that's truly infinite, truly limitless, and no amount can be too greedy for the kind of transformation that you're able to facilitate for someone when you're on your right path. Everybody has their own path. Not everybody's meant to be a coach, like a life coach. Not everybody's meant to be. We all have our own unique path. And like I said, coming back to that like kaleidoscope kind of analogy, we're all channeling the divine, but we all just have our own ways of doing it, and the thing that our own unique gifts. And when you're on that path, and when you're truly in alignment, and you're working with God or the universe to deliver that to people, you just can't put a price on that. And I think it's limitless. I'd say maybe it's just something which I've done personally. You scale the more you feel confident, the more you're able to host an experience, and the greater depth that you're able to go to with people once you've worked with numerous others and what you're doing on an experiential level. I do feel like the more experience you have, the more you're able to charge. But also the higher you elevate, and the vibration that you raise yourself to, as you go higher and higher, you're going to have to price yourself higher because your time is worth more. And money, when you shift your own attitude around money and your own energetic perception of it, what might have seemed like a lot of money a few years ago won't seem like a lot of money to you anymore, because you've raised your vibration, and you only want to connect with people who are ready to raise their vibration also to that level. This isn't about doing charity work. This is about, because they have their people on that level. You're elevating, you're rising, and you should be attracting people who are on that same mission with you, who will be able to pay those prices. Because when you shift your own perception around money and what it means to you, your prices need to come along with it. So like $5,000 for something might seem like a lot now, but in 10 years time it might seem like a very, very small amount. And as you shift and raise your vibration, your prices have to come with you, and you'll continue to attract the right people who are on that level. And people who aren't quite on that level with their money mindset yet, as you, they have their own people on that level.
Yeah.
So you have your people, so never feel afraid that you're going to alienate people, because you're not. You just go to
that does make
sense. Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, my natural, maybe it's conditioning, but I understand what you're saying. It's just my natural response is like, oh, that's unfair. Like, you know, unfair. Like, just not as in, like, if someone, I obviously I'm still trying to change my perception around money, right? We've had this conversation before. I do still have quite a negative aspect around money, like a negative perception around money. But I mean, in terms of like someone who doesn't have the money for a service but needs that service or would benefit from that service.
But think about how many people there are in that position. If you tried to serve them all, you would be serving no one. You don't have the energetic output for that. Okay, so by actually raising yourself up, you're able to serve more people. And you often find that when you're in that position of having a lot more financial freedom, you're able to serve in a greater sense by like the free content and the free things that you put out that people have access to, just by being a thought leader. Like, think about how much you can be impacted by people you've never met or never bought services from, but because of the time that they have, because of the money that they earn to put things out there for everybody freely, you're able to impact so many more people by doing that than by trying to serve every single person individually, because if you tried to do that, you wouldn't be able to help anyone.
Okay, yeah, that does make sense, yeah. But in terms of also for people who maybe aren't spiritually aware, and people who do have money, a good flow of money, how would you explain, like, how do they get it then? Because obviously these are some, like, not everyone's spiritually aware of manifestation, and not everyone's aware of how to create their own reality, and that money is energy and money is abundant. How do you explain how that flows in and out of their life? Is it just their mindset is different, or they have a more positive mindset and that's what attracts it?
I really, really believe so. A lot of the time, even when people aren't spiritual, if they've risen up from nothing, but like if they've risen up from a place of economic difficulty into financial abundance, whether they class themselves as spiritual or not, they had full belief that that money was available to them, and they went after it and they got it. And it's quite as simple as that. They fully believed it. Whether they look at that in a spiritual way and they frame it in a spiritual way doesn't really matter. The underlying beliefs and energy work is still the same. We're all doing energy work. Even spiritual people, non-spiritual people are doing energy work without realizing it. Just because they don't put that label on it doesn't mean we're not all energetic beings, whether people are aware of it or not. And we know that because of, I'm going to close the door. We know that because of how other people's negative energies, who maybe somebody who's not spiritual and they're not aware of the energy that they're putting out, but it still affects us, especially as empaths and spiritual people, we still feel that. So that's how we know that we are all energetic, even if we don't feel like we're in control of it or we fully know what it is. So I think when people make a lot of money, they're doing that energy work without necessarily realizing it or putting it in a spiritual framework. And one thing that you often see and find, and that I think people think is unfair, is people who are born into money tend to go on to have a lot of money. And it's because from growing up, they've never had those limiting beliefs put on them, because it's never been an issue. Money's never been an issue. They've always thought, if I want something, then I can have it. So
Yeah.
of course, you know, there are people who come from money and then they have a lot of money poured into their ventures, which is more likely to make them successful, blah blah. But I think a lot of it as well is also down to their mindset, because they never believed that money would be an object or an issue, and they've always had that underlying belief that they can have all the money that they would like. They've just continued to manifest it without necessarily realizing they're manifesting.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. So lastly, can you tell us what the future holds? Because I know I've kept you for quite some time, just being mindful of the time. Can you tell us what the future holds for you, and for your businesses, how we can stay connected with you, how we can stay up to date with you, and what is on the cards for you?
Yes, well, so I love my design work from a digital marketing agency. So I think I'm still gonna, and I still am doing some very aligned design projects, but just with conscious, spiritual, soul-centered businesses, because that just works for me. But that's one thing. But my main focus now is definitely growing this business and the impact that it can have on people in terms of the moon cycles, the astrology side of things. Like, I really just want to share that knowledge with as many people as possible, and probably centrally money and manifestation blocks, because that's a massive block for people. So yeah, I've got some programs that I'm building around really balancing those two energies that we've spoken about, like that duality of like masculine and feminine, or like hustle and rest, and spiritual and material. I really believe that it doesn't have to be or, it can be and. So we can have both of those. So I really just want to help people be able to infuse them together and find this like beautiful balance, and also be able to tune into what is really your aligned purpose and passion. So yeah, I'm going to be offering products and working with people one-to-one to kind of help them to realize that. And this sounds a little bit random, but I'm just going to pop it out there. My long-term end game is skincare. So natural, cosmic, spiritual skincare. So in like 5 or 6 years.
That sounds incredible.
That's not.
We definitely do need more of that, though.
We do.
There's too many toxins and chemicals. I mean, this is a whole different other subject, but really, yeah, there are, and I feel like there's still not enough awareness, you know, around. Totally. I mean, of course, like within our community, yeah, but I mean, there's still not enough awareness.
Brands are really good at marketing things as being organic and natural when they're not. Like some of the big brands, because they know that's what people are buying now.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and it's just like the awareness around actually how detrimental these toxins and chemicals are, the actual effects that they have on your body as well. Yeah, it's just it's a whole different subject, but yeah, so we need more of that.
yes, I want to educate myself even more on that side of things and all the natural ingredients. I have a good foundational knowledge, but I'm ready to expand on that, and then when I'm ready, I'll be out with the skincare.
Can't wait for that. Incredible. Thank you so much.
Yeah, collectively raising everyone's vibration. That's something.
Yes, exactly.
More fun.
Sounds incredible. Thank you so much for your time, Meghann. I really appreciate it. I hope I didn't keep you too long.
It always happens. All day. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much.